Outside the fence, the Azure Dragon High Lord and the Black Dragon stared carefully at the patrolling puppets. They had investigated those guys in advance, and their senses were especially sharp. In particular, they could immediately sense any movement within 100 feet of their bodies. Even though Flame Rat's cultivation was outstanding and could greatly restrict his aura when he was escaping, it was still difficult to avoid being discovered at such a close distance. Once their whereabouts were exposed, the puppets from the other areas in the periphery would quickly support them and surround them. The three of them had put in a lot of effort this time. It had taken a lot of effort for them to pass through the cliff just now. It was impossible to cross over there in a short period of time. Therefore, this operation had to be extremely cautious, so no mistakes could be made. Li Yuanqing watched as the three of them busied themselves. He was no longer in a hurry and stood guard at the side. This altar was naturally very attractive to all powers. The fluctuations emitted from their bodies were completely absorbed by the altar, so they did not have to worry about the Azure Dragon and the others sensing them. However, at such a close distance, beside a second-stage supremacy, Shan Ke was very anxious. Flame Rat in front suddenly sent back a burning talisman. As soon as the talisman landed in the Azure Dragon's hand, he said, "A puppet is coming in front of me. Hurry up and lure it away." The talisman in the Azure Dragon's hand burned into ashes and fell to the ground. He fumbled in his sleeves and took out 2 fist-sized balls. Li Yuanqing was very familiar with these 2 balls. This was the puppet refined by Taoist by Mei. From the looks of it, after Taoist by Mei escaped, the 2 of them had plundered his cave abode. The Azure Dragon sat cross-legged on the ground. The 2 balls floated in front of him and slowly rolled forward. The small ball rolled very slowly along the periphery of the fence. After rolling out for about a few miles, the small balls suddenly separated and turned into 2-foot-tall dog-shaped puppets. After the 2 little puppets were ready, they rushed in from 2 places like fences. The 2 puppies knocked a hole in the fence and stood in the herb garden, barking loudly at the puppets inside. The puppets inside all shifted their gazes over. Their gazes were very cold as they swept past the 2 puppet beasts. They realized that their strength was only in the spirit transformation realm. Therefore, the others continued to patrol along their established routes. Only the puppet closest to the 2 dogs slowly walked over. In the eyes of the puppet, its movements were very slow. Every step seemed to take a lot of effort, but in fact, its step was 10 feet long. In just a while, it arrived at the fence. The puppet dog let out 2 screams and fled outside with its tail between its legs. The puppet guard of the Divine Fire sect was unwilling to let them go. He chased after them. In just a short while, Flame Rat inside began to transport soil out crazily again. Their vast project was progressing very quickly. After there were no guards in that area, Flame Rat could be said to be completely unrestrained. By the time the fellow finished dealing with the 2 puppets and returned, the cave had gradually calmed down. The Azure Dragon watched as the soil inside decreased, and his emotions slowly became agitated. This time, he had exhausted his energy. In order to obtain the treasures left behind before the large sects liquidated, he ran around and finally arranged such a plan. Behind the medicinal garden was the alchemy room of the Divine Fire sect. Although the Divine Fire sect was only a small sect and the alchemy room was not that big, it was still a considerable income for them as itinerant cultivators. If he was lucky, he could search deeper inside. If he found their treasure vault, if he took a risk and could plunder more materials from it, he would make a killing. As the Azure Dragon thought about it, his blood could not help but surge. He licked his lips gently and silently considered his plan later. "Black Dragon," he suddenly called out. "What is it?" Black Dragon squatted in front of Li Yuanqing. He looked like he was keeping a lookout to see if anyone was coming, but he did not notice the 2 people behind him. At this moment, the Black Dragon turned around and returned to the Azure Dragon's side. "When you go in later, be smart, understand?" Black Dragon smiled proudly and nodded gently. "Don't worry, I understand." Azure Dragon smiled and patted Black Dragon's shoulder. Black Dragon was quite flexible. Although his strength was not much now, he was honest. It was quite convenient to take him in as a follower. "I'll help you find an immortal pill after this. If you have the opportunity, you might be able to reach the Supremacy Realm. This is a rare opportunity. Black Dragon could not help but tremble with excitement. Even in his dreams, he wanted to return to the Supremacy Realm. Although his divine sense had escaped, his body that he had cultivated for 1,000 years was destroyed just like that, causing him to be stuck in this position as a slave. He had always hated Li Yuanqing. Thank you for your help. I, Black Dragon, will never betray you in my life. After the Black Dragon expressed his loyalty, the Azure Dragon High Lord was quite satisfied with this. He even said very politely, "All right, although the two of us have some grudges, we've known each other for so many years. There's no need to be so strict. If you can really return to the Supremacy Realm, you can call me brother in the future." I wouldn't dare. All right, be smart later. Although Azure Dragon said that, he was still a little proud to see Black Dragon in such a hurry to express his loyalty. It seemed that his personal charm was indeed strong enough to tame such a cunning Black Dragon so obediently. Just as they finished discussing, a small red flag was sent back from the cave. The Azure Dragon High Lord took the small flag and skillfully inserted it into the hole under his feet. After the small flag was inserted, smoke suddenly rose from the entire cave. The smoke slowly spread out and finally dispersed. It gradually covered the hole. After a moment, he could not even see anything strange. They were quite cautious. After digging the tunnel here, they specially set up a hidden array. This way, they would not have to worry about being discovered when they passed through later. After setting up everything, the two of them hurriedly entered the cave and fell silent. After the two of them left, the dense bushes around them twisted and turned into smoke. The smoke gradually dissipated, revealing Li Yuanqing and Shan Ke hiding inside. Shan Ke ran to the entrance of the cave and bent down to take a look. Even if he was so close, he could not see anything. He reached inside again and touched an empty space. He hurriedly retreated and ran to Li Yuanqing's side. "Supremacy, I didn't expect you to have such powerful hiding strength. You didn't expose yourself in front of the three of them." The more Shan Ke looked at Li Yuanqing, the more he admired him. Although this fellow looked very young and seemed unreliable, he was very stable. Moreover, his strength was definitely not as simple as it looked. Li Yuanqing walked straight to the entrance of the cave and silently waited for a moment. When it was about time, a head covered in red hair suddenly emerged from under a thick bush near the exit at the other end of the herb garden. The flame rat carefully crawled out from inside. His burly body secretly hid in the bushes and carefully observed his surroundings. There was a not-so-tall mountain in front of them. At the top of the mountain was a very majestic hall. That hall was their goal this time, the alchemy pavilion. The three of them crawled out one by one and wanted to head to the mountain. There was a path in the middle, but there was also a puppet patrolling back and forth on the path. Their puppets are all used to control the periphery. There are no guards in the alchemy pavilion on the mountain anymore. As long as we bypass this guy, we can go up the mountain without any obstructions. Azure Dragon looked at his map again and said excitedly, "You have to be more reliable. You can't be wrong," the flame rat warned him. "We have already entered the hinterlands of their sect. There's no way out now. Don't worry. I've already investigated this matter clearly. I have brothers here. I know the patrol map here very well. As long as we're careful, there won't be any problems." "Why are you still hiding so many things from me?" The flame rat suddenly realized the main point. "Before we came, you didn't say that you knew anyone here. Does it matter? All you need to know is that my news is accurate. How is it not important? I don't even know who I'm working with." The flame rat sat down and looked at him. "We agreed at the beginning that we would split it 40-60. Black Dragon was suddenly stunned. This was different from what he had heard. Not only was Azure Dragon not embarrassed, but he even smiled and said to Flame Rat, "I've arranged everything. Do you still think there's anything wrong?" "You arranged it too well." The Flame Rat stared at him with its small eyes and said, "I was puzzled from the beginning. Why did you look for me? You asked for a 40-60 split at once. It's such a high price. You just wanted me to come over and help you open a path?" Azure Dragon High Lord's face darkened when he heard this. "You're thinking too much." Flame Rat confirmed his guess and turned to leave. "I can't stay here any longer." "Why? Are you trying to expose us?" You've already set up this trap? The flame rat glared at the Azure Dragon High Lord hatefully and said, "Don't think I don't know. You have an acquaintance here. You work from the inside and outside. You're so familiar with this route. There's no need to hire someone to dig such a big hole." Azure Dragon fell silent. Flame Rat knew that he had discovered the truth and snorted proudly. "You tricked me over at such a high price. Aren't you going to throw me out as a scapegoat after you succeed?" After saying that, the Flame Rat came to the side of the tunnel and wanted to enter. At the back of the tunnel, Li Yuanqing and Shan Ke carefully squatted at the side and waited. The two of them had completely heard what these people had said just now. Li Yuanqing and Shan Ke had already arrived. They did not expect the other party to have a conflict. The guy was about to come in. His legs were already down. At this moment, he suddenly stopped. Azure Dragon stopped him. "Flame Rat, aren't you thinking too much?" "I'm thinking too much?" The Flame Rat sneered. "If I wasn't thinking too much, I would have been killed by you guys long ago. How could I still be alive today?" Azure Dragon High Lord seemed to have thought of a countermeasure. He smiled calmly and said to the Flame Rat, "I didn't tell you before because I was afraid that you would leak this news. Is that wrong?" "That's a nice thing to say. Who knows what you're thinking? We're in the same boat now. If I left you here, you can easily trigger the traps of their sect. At that time, as long as they mobilize their people, who can escape?" The Flame Rat began to hesitate after the Azure Dragon Lord said that. Although he was very careful, he was still confident in his strength. It was basically impossible for the Azure Dragon to abandon him and escape. That sounds good. What I said isn't important. We're already here. Can you really let go of the treasures in the Alchemy Pavilion?" After saying that, Azure Dragon ignored him and looked at the fellow patrolling in front of him. He slowly said, "We're already here. If you want to retreat by yourself, I won't stop you. In any case, we can cross the road without you." After Azure Dragon finished speaking, the puppet walked past the path and into the forest. This was an excellent opportunity. Without any explanation, the Azure Dragon hurriedly led Black Dragon along the path and quickly arrived at the foot of the mountain where the Alchemy Pavilion was. A crack had appeared in the array formation at the foot of the mountain. When the two of them arrived, the crack had just appeared, allowing them to flash in. Seeing this, Flame Rat was extremely anxious. Didn't they come all the way here for those treasures? Li Yuanqing crawled out of the small hole. At this moment, the patrolling puppet circled back. The small crack disappeared after the Flame Rat crawled in. Supremacy. They cooperated from the inside and broke the restriction on the Alchemy Pavilion. Now that the restriction is closed, I'm afraid the two of us can't enter. Li Yuanqing ignored him and waited there, waiting for the puppet to circle around again like the three of them. He brought Shan Ke and quickly passed through the path to the restriction at the foot of the mountain. Supremacy. That guy will circle back soon. Li Yuanqing suddenly took out a circular array disc with 3 small flags on it. He skillfully inserted the 3 small flags at the edge of the restriction in front of him and placed the circular array disc in the middle of the small flags. He pressed the center of the array disc with one hand. The array disc slowly lit up and released a puff of smoke that spread to the restriction in front of him. The smoke ahead slowly thinned after being covered by this gas. Like melted ice, the hazy image gradually disappeared, revealing the real forest inside. Li Yuanqing flashed through the small door.
Sanke watched in shock.
In just a short while, Li Yuanqing had broken through a protective array on the mountain gate. Moreover, there was no reaction from outside at all. It seemed like they did not notice at all. After going up the mountain, as the Azure Dragon Lord had said, there were really no guards on it. Li Yuanqing carefully sensed around and indeed did not sense any aura. They followed the tracks of the few people just now and slowly caught up. The magnificent Alchemy Pavilion stood at the top of the mountain, but it looked a little deserted at this time. He walked across the wide circular square to the door of the Alchemy Pavilion and could hear the voices of 3 people whispering inside. "I was really a stupid pig to believe what you said." The Flame Rat gritted his teeth and cursed. The Azure Dragon High Lord's face was ashen as he looked at the empty Alchemy Pavilion in front of him. It was completely different from the news he had received. Seeing that the atmosphere between the two of them was slightly awkward, Black Dragon whispered, Maybe they just moved the things away? I knew the two of you were unreliable. It was no wonder that the flame rat was furious. Li Yuanqing was a little puzzled when he came up just now. There were no guards in the alchemy pavilion at all. Moreover, the restrictions inside had already been removed, and there was no smell of pills. He did not know why these people had come up. This situation was exactly as he had imagined. He slowly circled to the side of the hall and continued walking forward. There was a magnificent mountain in front of him. That mountain did not look very eye-catching, but it was heavily guarded. Moreover, there were very powerful restrictions on it. If he was not wrong, this was the most important treasure vault of the Divine Fire sect. Don't you know something about the situation here? What is that place? Shan Ke scratched his head hesitantly and said uncertainly, Supremacy. My news is all hearsay, so it might not be accurate. They said that the Divine Fire sect's treasure vault is very close to the Alchemy Pavilion. Moreover, there's a passageway below the Alchemy Pavilion that leads to their dungeon. Where did you find out about this? Shan Ke looked into the hall in fear and said, They said that the people in the Divine Fire sect are all crazy and like to eat human flesh and drink human blood. Their alchemists often catch criminals and refine human pills with humans as the foundation. That's why they specially built a passageway. There's such a thing? I'm not sure if it's true, but that's what everyone else says. I think it's not much different. Li Yuanqing looked at the mountain in front of him and pondered about saving Master Wu Yan. First of all, it was hard to say if Master Wu Yan was dead or alive. If he barged into the dungeon, it was very likely that he would make a wasted trip and not get anything. If he could plunder his treasure vault before that, it would not be a wasted trip. There were more than 10 puppets guarding the mountain in front of them. Their Divine Fire sect had already fallen to such a state, and there were probably not many puppets left. But more than 10 people were mobilized to guard this mountain. From the looks of it, this was not simple. It would probably be difficult to enter silently. If they barged in directly, it would indeed be troublesome when reinforcements from other places arrived. Just as Li Yuanqing was conflicted, the 3 people in the hall behind him argued again. We're already here. What else do you want? Have I told you any lies since I came in? I've been tricked too. Flame Rat looked at him suspiciously. He didn't want to believe anything this guy said anymore. Whatever you say. Hurry up and open that door. I'm leaving now. I'm not in the mood to waste time with you two. Do whatever you want. It has nothing to do with me. If you leave, the two of us will definitely be exposed. We have to move together. You can't leave. In your dreams. Flame Rat said coldly. I've already been tricked by you to come here, and you still want to trick me in. The Azure Dragon High Lord seemed to have made a difficult decision. He suddenly said to him, We'll split it 50-50. Flame Rat reluctantly turned to look at him. What did you say? I originally wanted to give the extra 20% to him, but since I've already been betrayed, there's no need to keep this 20%. The two of us will just split this 20% and forget about it. Look at how many people are guarding the front. Can you enter? Flame Rat looked at him coldly and said, I want to stay alive. If you want to die, go ahead. You're already here. Are you really not interested in their treasures at all? The Azure Dragon High Lord walked to the entrance of the hall and looked to his right in confusion. It was empty. There was nothing there. However, he clearly felt that something was wrong just now. That's the treasure vault of their sect. There are huge piles of fire spirit fruits inside. Can you bear to put down so many fire spirit fruits and leave? No matter how much it has to do with me. I have a secret path that can sneak into the treasure vault silently from the foot of this mountain. Where did you get this? Don't tell me that guy gave it to you. I spent 100 spirit stones to buy this from that array master. No one knows. At this point, the Azure Dragon High Lord was a little anxious. Flame Rat sized up the Azure Dragon High Lord. He did not look like he was lying. Tell me where the secret passageway is first. Follow me and you will know. Azure Dragon pointed at a place with dense black fog on the side of the mountain opposite. There was originally a canal to the east, and there is a snake demon guarding it. What level of snake demon? 2nd grade supremacy. Are you joking? Listen to me. Azure Dragon told him everything. Although that snake demon's cultivation level is high, It has to hibernate for a month every few years. Not many people know about this. Moreover, the terrain there is dangerous. They usually won't set up any defense. It's our opportunity. You've even calculated that place? Flame Rat carefully sized up the azure dragon, his eyes filled with distrust. Since I've already planned to come, I naturally have to set it up better. Just as the Flame Rat was hesitating, two figures rushed down the mountain without the three of them noticing. Supremacy, do you really believe what he said? It's fine. We'll know if it's true or not when we go and investigate. Shan Ke looked at Li Yuanqing worriedly. I keep feeling that this guy can't say a word of truth. Perhaps even this matter is fake. The two of them went down the mountain and circled around from the outside to the place where Azure Dragon was gesturing. Black smoke billowed here, enveloping a radius of 10 miles. Everything that came into contact with it turned into thick black liquid. There were no plants here. They were all black mud pools that looked like swamps. There was a layer of bushes guarding the outermost area. With this bush here, the black fog did not expand. In the depths of the swamp, there was indeed a powerful snake. Behind the two of them, 3 auras were approaching very quickly. Azure Dragon hurried along this secret path. This was their last chance. They had spent so much effort to come in this time. It would be too unlucky if they could not get anything. Just as he was running fast, a light flashed in front of him. For some reason, a 2-foot-tall little person blocked his path. The moment the little person appeared, he was shocked. He saw that this little guy was just a puppet. However, when Black Dragon saw the puppet, his eyes widened in disbelief. This? What is this? Flame Rat looked at the little puppet in front of him in panic. The appearance of this thing was completely unexpected. As soon as he finished speaking, number 36 suddenly opened his mouth and let out an extremely penetrative roar. Not good. Azure Dragon's face darkened. He really could not figure out where he had miscalculated and was actually tricked like this. When they realized that something was wrong, they wanted to retreat, but it was too late. When the puppets outside heard the commotion, they turned their gazes over. Even a man in a yellow robe in the treasure vault in the mountainside quickly left the treasure vault when he heard the shout. You bastard! You want to kill us all here. Flame Rat turned pale with fright and burrowed into the ground, wanting to use the earth escape technique to escape. However, the ground under his feet suddenly flickered with spiritual light, as if it had been changed into something as hard as ore. Flame Rat stabbed into it with a crisp clang. He felt dizzy and looked out anxiously. The moment something happened, Azure Dragon immediately retreated. His only way out now was to break out from the way he came. Otherwise, he would not be able to break out in any direction. Black Dragon followed him, but he did not forget to turn around to look before leaving. Number 36 looked at him expressionlessly. He would never forget this little puppet. However, the Bai Mei fellow had clearly fled somewhere. How could he still be in the immortal world? While the three of them fled in a sorry state, Li Yuanqing wrapped himself in black fog and brought Shan Ke through the wide swamp. An incomparably huge python was sleeping soundly under their feet, not noticing the two of them pass. Powerful energy kept surging over from the mountain. Outside, many puppets stationed elsewhere also rushed over. Li Yuanqing landed on the mountain. This place was really an empty space except for the array formation that condensed the black fog. They thought that it was foolproof. However, who would have thought that the Azure Dragon would know when this snake demon was sleeping? In just a short while, all the puppets chased in the direction of the medicinal garden. This was also the weakness of their defensive array formation. As long as one thing went wrong, the other directions would immediately respond. Although they could gather their strength for a short period of time, they would also face the trouble of running around for nothing. Li Yuanqing had just landed on the mountain when he suddenly took out the altar to hide their figures and carefully looked at the sky. It turned out that in the sky, a yellow-robed man suddenly appeared. After confirming the direction of the medicinal garden, he flew over. Supremacy, that person is Supremacy Huangling. The few supremacies of their divine fire sect are all dead and injured. There's only one left, and he's still guarding here alone. Supremacy Huangling never expected that there were 2 other people under his feet who had already sneaked into the depths when he ran to deal with someone who had sneaked in from behind. As soon as he left, Li Yuanqing secretly brought the two of them to the treasure vault in the mountainside. There was a very wide bronze door here. This bronze door was engraved with very complicated patterns and carried a very profound power. This bronze door is 103,000 pounds heavy and has layers of restrictions. If there is no key to the restriction to enter and exit, we won't be able to break through it in a short period of time. Shan Ke looked behind him anxiously. He did not know when the Supremacy Huangling would return. Supremacy, it'll be too late if we don't leave now. When Huangling returns, the two of us will be blocked here. This door was like a city wall in front of the two of them. Shan Ke looked behind him anxiously. He kept feeling that there was a large group of people standing behind him, wanting to surround him at any time. Supremacy, we're in a heavily guarded treasure vault. As long as two of their people return, the two of us will be finished. At this moment, Li Yuanqing, who had been observing silently, suddenly turned to him. Shan Ke was shocked by Li Yuanqing's actions. Li Yuanqing suddenly said to him, "I want you to do something." Shan Ke's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Li Yuanqing uneasily and asked, "I wonder what request you have? If I have the ability, I'm naturally willing to help." A large number of array flags suddenly appeared under Li Yuanqing's feet, as well as an incomparably profound array disc. "I want you to go out immediately and hide outside the swamp. When the people from the Divine Fire sect return, sneak under the Alchemy Pavilion and find Master Wu Yin." For a moment, Shan Ke did not understand what Li Yuanqing meant. After thinking for a while, he finally understood and looked at Li Yuanqing in shock. "Supremacy? You want to stay here alone? But what will you do if their people retreat?" Li Yuanqing sat cross-legged on the ground silently with his eyes closed. His head suddenly lit up with a holy light that spread out like ripples. Wherever Li Yuanqing's divine sense passed, the array flags spread out in an orderly manner. Soon, they filled the area within 100 feet of Li Yuanqing. The array disc floated in front of Li Yuanqing and threads scattered on it. These events connected the array flags outside from a very complicated and disorderly state to a complete whole. Shan Ke was mesmerized. He had never expected Zhao Tian to have so many methods. "Hurry up and leave."
Li Yuanqing's rua buka Shan Kap.
Shan Ke nodded in a panic and crawled into the passageway behind without looking back. He returned to the dark swamp the way he had come. This swamp was still so deep and quiet. The faint aura inside was still so terrifying.
San Ke forcefully emboldened himself.
He crossed the swamp at a very fast speed and returned to the dense forest at the other end. He quietly turned towards the Alchemy Pavilion. He did not know where Li Yuanqing got his confidence from to fight these guys from the Divine Fire sect head-on with such an indomitable aura. Looking at Li Yuanqing's attitude, it was obvious that he wanted to take all the fire for these things and let Shan Ke take advantage of the chaos to bring the people out of the dungeon. However, Shan Ke was very skeptical about Li Yuanqing's ability. After all, although Supremacy Huangling was unknown outside, he was still a 5th-grade supremacy. No matter how many methods Li Yuanqing had, he had just stepped into the supremacy realm. Not to mention that the other party had so many powerful puppets to control. It was obvious from the comparison between the two sides. Shan Ke did not think highly of Li Yuanqing. Li Yuanqing had his life in his hands. If he did not listen, he would not be able to keep his life. Helpless, he could only follow Li Yuanqing's instructions and carefully enter the periphery of the Alchemy Pavilion. At this moment, the battle at the Alchemy Pavilion had gradually stopped. There were a few puppets guarding the mountain. They patrolled it for a while to see if there were any remaining people. The main forces were all gathered in the medicinal garden behind. Azure Dragon, who had been trying his best to escape just now, was stopped by the 3 puppets in the medicinal garden. Initially, they wanted to return the way they came. However, how could there be such a good thing in the world? The moment the auras of the 3 of them were exposed, the protective array of the entire Divine Fire sect was instantly activated, locking their auras firmly. No matter where they escaped, the locked power on their bodies was like a thread that wrapped around them tightly, unable to escape. Black Dragon's face was pale as he leaned against the Azure Dragon. At this moment, he no longer thought about the distribution of benefits just now. He only had one thought in his heart: how to save his life. However, no matter what, this situation looked like a dead end. If he had known earlier, he would not have followed the Azure Dragon to get involved in this mess. A yellow rope pierced straight into the soil. Then, the rope suddenly straightened and pulled up heavily. The dark ground below suddenly churned. Loose soil flew in all directions. In the ground below, a huge rat covered in flames was forcefully pulled out. Flame Rat flew high into the sky with bright yellow ropes tied around his body. His 2 claws were still scratching the ropes, trying to cut them open. Unfortunately, his efforts were all useless. The other end of the rope was in Huangling's hand. At this moment, the yellow-robed man was looking enviously at the 3 people below. The 3 of you are quite fast to be able to get in from such a place. Where did you get this information? The yellow-robed man played with the yellow fireball in his hand and looked relaxed. He did not seem to take the 3 people below seriously at all. At this moment, the Azure Dragon and the other 2 were already terrified. They only wanted to escape. Seeing this opportunity, the Flame Rat jumped out without hesitation. Sir, this matter was all because Azure Dragon bribed the people in your Divine Fire sect. It has nothing to do with me. Is that so? Sir, don't listen to his nonsense. The Azure Dragon hurriedly said, At this moment, I'm also forced into a corner. It's all because of that Flame Rat that forced the 2 of us to come here and do something sneaky. I knew nothing about this beforehand. You're a bad person. You were the one who forced me to come over. How can you clear yourself? The Flame Rat was dumbfounded. He had never seen such a shameless person. He was the one who took the initiative to look for him, but now, he could actually push all the blame to him. That was not all. Azure Dragon pointed at the Flame Rat and said, Supremacy. All the evidence of the crime is on him. The 2 of us know nothing. The yellow-robed man looked at them with interest. The 3 of them criticized each other below. It was quite interesting. These 3 fellows had actually already fallen into his hands. None of them would be able to leave this place alive. Why wouldn't it be interesting to beg for mercy when they were on the verge of death? Just as the yellow-robed man was smiling proudly, the mountain with the treasure vault behind him suddenly let out a muffled sound. The yellow-robed man's expression froze. He turned around in shock and looked at the tall mountain behind him with disbelief. Quick, go back. He roared and flicked his sleeve, instantly turning into a yellow bolt of lightning that disappeared into the air. The puppets he led also turned around one by one and quickly rushed towards the treasure vault. In an instant, only 2 Divine Fire sect disciples were left in front of the 3 people who were originally surrounded. They led 3 puppets and stood in front of them. The 3 of them, who were almost in despair just now, instantly saw hope. Azure Dragon glanced at the Flame Rat coldly and said to him, Brother Flame, in the current situation, if the 2 of us can't break through together, I'm afraid we'll all die here. Although the Flame Rat looked a little stupid, it was clear what he was thinking. He did not care about the argument between the 2 sides just now at all. It was as if both sides had already forgotten everything. Instead, he glanced at the Azure Dragon and replied solemnly, The heavens are helping me this time. You and I will join forces and break out of the encirclement, but after we leave, we will part ways. Don't let me see you again. That's easy. Since we've already come to this, I'm afraid there's no need for us to meet again. The 2 disciples of the Divine Fire sect could not help but reprimand them when they saw their blatant communication. Cut the crap. If you want to escape with your strength, you have to get past us first. Then give it a try. In the medicinal garden, the 2 sides instantly fought. Although the 2 disciples of the Divine Fire sect were not strong, they had 3 puppets under their command. For a moment, they had the upper hand. Although the 3 of them could not take the initiative in terms of strength, they were agile and moved slowly towards the outside of the medicinal garden. On the other side, Shan Ke, hiding at the foot of the small mountain in the alchemy pavilion, was crawling in the bushes in fear, not daring to reveal his aura. Just now, he had followed Li Yuanqing's instructions and quickly arrived. He wanted to join in the fun outside, but Li Yuanqing's signal came very quickly. Shan Ke did not expect Li Yuanqing to be so decisive. After causing such a huge commotion in the treasure vault, could this supremacy still escape this time? Shan Ke was very puzzled. He watched as the yellow-robed man flew over his head with a group of disciples. He did not have the strength to stop the people opposite him. After these people squeezed through, how much hope did Li Yuanqing have? Shan Ke felt that there was not much hope in this matter. He silently pondered if he could leave. Zhao Tian must be too careless this time. It's impossible for him to escape. If I continue to follow his instructions and go to the dungeon to save people, won't I lose my life? While the people above were gone, he secretly returned to the alchemy pavilion. The two teams that were running towards the back of the mountain were fighting happily. No one would stop him if he sneaked out from the side. However, that would mean leaving Li Yuanqing here. If Li Yuanqing did not die and detonated the flames in his body, he would die. Shan Ke hesitated again and again, but in the end, he did not dare to make up his mind. In the end, he gritted his teeth and searched around the alchemy pavilion before finding an open and deep passageway. On the other side, the yellow-robed man rushed back to the treasure vault with his subordinates. What greeted their eyes was the open door of the treasure vault. The thick stone door was shattered into pieces and scattered around. This was the barrier they relied on the most. They had thought that the treasure vault was impregnable, but they did not expect it to be broken through so easily in such a short period of time. The yellow-robed man's face turned red. He had not seen it for a while, but it had already become like this. "How dare you?" he shouted, and the yellow fireball appeared in his hand again. The yellow fireball quickly expanded in his hand and became half the size of a human. The yellow-robed man also rushed into the treasure vault. At this moment, half of the fruits and various materials that were originally piled up like a mountain in the treasure vault were gone. The treasure vault that was originally filled to the brim was now much emptier. Seeing this, the yellow-robed man trembled in anger. "Where are you escaping to?" he shouted, and the flames instantly enveloped the entire treasure vault. A powerful domain power instantly covered everything in the treasure vault. He could clearly sense Li Yuanqing's existence in the corner. Another large pile of fire spirit fruits disappeared into thin air, revealing Li Yuanqing's figure. Li Yuanqing stood behind the material mountain and looked at the people from the divine fire sect who had rushed over. However, he did not panic at all. The yellow-robed man was so angry that his entire body was trembling. With a command, all the puppets surrounded Li Yuanqing and blocked him. "How dare you trespass into the territory of my divine fire sect? Watch how I'll skin you alive today." Supremacy Huang Ling let out a loud cry and flames erupted from his body. The flames turned into countless ropes that rushed towards Li Yuanqing from all directions. Li Yuanqing did not dodge when he saw this. A palm-sized black platform had appeared on his head. The black square platform looked very ancient. It did not look special, but it was too thin to see the details on it. If one looked carefully, they would discover that this was the style of an altar. Black threads scattered from the group and wrapped around Li Yuanqing like black pythons. All the lines that tried to approach Li Yuanqing were burned and melted the moment they touched the black threads, dissipating into nothingness. Seeing this, Huang Ling suddenly calmed down. He originally thought that Li Yuanqing was weak and could be dealt with easily. He wanted to vent his anger first. However, he did not expect this guy to have such methods. After witnessing the power of the black fog, Huang Ling calmed down a lot. His puppets also completed their formation. "Kid, your Dharma treasure is a precious thing." Huang Ling looked greedily at the altar above Li Yuanqing's head and couldn't help but lick his lips. In his opinion, even if Li Yuanqing had some methods, he was still a dead man. The treasure on his head would definitely belong to him. Li Yuanqing's expression was calm like a puppet as he stood there without moving. "You little thief, you actually dared to steal so many treasures from my treasure vault. Even if you die 10 times, it will not be able to appease the hatred in my heart." Huang Ling gritted his teeth and looked at the empty space beside him. He slowly mobilized the power of the array formation. The puppets that had already been set up lit up and connected with each other. They all raised their spears and turned into an array formation. The net in the center of the array formation was connected very densely, targeting Li Yuanqing, who was standing in the middle. Even though the outer formation had already taken shape, Li Yuanqing's expression remained unchanged. He stood there, as if he had no intention of escaping. Arrogant. Huang Ling had never seen such an arrogant young man before. His good mood just now was also angered by Li Yuanqing's arrogant aura. He cursed and waved his hand. His puppets activated their spears and shrank towards Li Yuanqing. As the puppets contracted, the huge net above Li Yuanqing's head kept spinning. The power on it gathered and pressed down like a 10,000 feet tall mountain, suppressing one's body. Under that huge pressure, Li Yuanqing's body finally distorted continuously. He began to deform and even let out creaking sounds. It was very terrifying. When Huang Ling saw this, he was very proud. This kid naturally had to pay the price for his arrogance. When the net was about to shrink to the end, the space inside was only the size of a person. However, at this moment, Li Yuanqing, who was in the center of the array formation and had been sealed by the huge power, suddenly became a palm-sized doll in front of everyone. The doll first fell down, then was attracted by a majestic force. It broke out of the net and ran up very quickly. Huang Ling watched this scene with his mouth agape. He had never expected that the guy he had been staring at just now was only a puppet, and he could not tell at all that this puppet was different from a real person. For the first time, Huang Ling felt diffident. Just now, he was still filled with confidence and felt that victory was in his grasp. He thought that he could completely control the other party's wishful thinking. But now, he suddenly panicked. Whether it was thinking about this guy who forcefully shattered the stone door that they were proud of or successfully escaping from the encirclement, the young man in front of him had displayed combat strength that was worlds apart from what he had imagined. He had no choice but to take him seriously again. Huang Ling hurriedly looked up. At the tip of the sky above his head, a green-robed man was holding the small doll and looking at them proudly. "Bastard, where are you going?" Huang Ling shouted and threw the huge fireball in his hand towards Li Yuanqing. However, at this moment, there was a sudden flash in front of him. An incomparably huge Dharma idol suddenly appeared in this narrow space. The moment this Dharma idol appeared, it emitted a majestic aura that frightened everyone below, especially the puppets. After sensing this dignity, even their limbs began to tremble. Although Huang Ling was powerful, he could not help but feel faint under this primitive pressure. His eyes that were looking at the Dharma idol could not help but tremble. What kind of existence could release such majestic power? He had no answer in his heart. He only knew that the Dharma idol in front of him looked like it could destroy him with a finger, making him unable to muster any confidence to resist. Just as he was retreating, the Dharma idol suddenly stretched out two arms and raised them above its head. Then, it propped itself up with all its might. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, the Dharma idol actually forcefully opened a crack in their hard dome. This was a treasure vault built in the mountainside. Moreover, there were layers of restrictions sealing it. Such a powerful treasure vault was actually cracked open by this method. The crack gradually expanded. When it was wide enough for one person, Li Yuanqing proudly waved at Huang Ling below and turned into a stream of light that crawled out of the crack. "Hurry up and chase after him. We can't let him escape." Only then did Huang Ling realize that this fellow had plundered most of the treasure vault of their sect. The puppets below barely stabilized themselves and chased after him through the crack. A long and narrow crack suddenly appeared above the majestic mountain. From the long and narrow crack, a person the size of a mosquito flew out. That person identified the direction slightly and quickly rushed back. Behind him, another group of little people crawled out of the crack. They gathered into a group and chased after Li Yuanqing. After everyone came out, another yellow light instantly flashed into the sky. He looked in the direction Li Yuanqing had escaped with an extremely solemn expression. It was unknown when a pair of wings had grown out of his back, but he was running as fast as he could. His puppets were powerful and contained very violent fire attribute spiritual energy. When they were enemies, they could cooperate with each other and have powerful effects. However, what made him very depressed was that Li Yuanqing was extremely fast and had a very unique method in his hands. That clone could even deceive him. If both sides could not come into contact, then his puppets would not have any advantage. A bolt of lightning instantly landed in front of Li Yuanqing, 30 feet away. If Li Yuanqing had not changed directions in time, he would have been hit by this thing. Their sect protection array was quite powerful. Moreover, many puppets were gathered here. There were more than 20 of them behind Li Yuanqing. Li Yuanqing looked down and happened to see Shan Ke supporting Master Wu Yan out of the hall below. Shan Ke looked at the periphery in fear. He had finally found Master Wu Yan. Fortunately, Master Wu Yan was still half alive. Who knew that as soon as he left the hall, more than 20 puppets immediately appeared in the sky. This frightened him badly. Just as he was about to retreat, a majestic force enveloped him. Shan Ke felt as if his body was completely out of control as he floated through the sky. In just a moment, he landed in Li Yuanqing's hand. Li Yuanqing brought them along and was in the mood to check on Master Wu Yan's condition in the sky. Fortunately, he was still alive. Supremacy! Shan Ke had never thought that he would be so excited to see Zhao Tian again. Very good. You've made a contribution this time. Supremacy, let's not talk about this. How are we going to escape from the many people following behind us? In his joy, Shan Ke looked back and realized that there was a yellow light behind him that was rapidly closing the distance between them. Before he could finish his sentence, a yellow light screen landed in front of the two of them. Stop right there. Huang Ling turned into a gust of wind and flashed past their heads. The wall in front of him was burning with flames. These flames were extremely ferocious. If one touched them, they would definitely wish they were dead. At this moment, the Dharma origin idol that had disappeared just now appeared again. The Dharma origin idol's huge hand ruthlessly struck the high wall in front of him. He was like a shield, opening a path at the front and forcefully pushing open the wall. Huang Ling was already blocking the front, but the Dharma idol rushed in front of him. He naturally did not dare to delay and hurriedly dodged to the side. In a flash, Li Yuanqing brought the two of them to the periphery of the medicinal garden. In the fierce battle just now, the Azure Dragon and the other two had already destroyed more than half of the array formation on the medicinal garden. After Huang Ling came out, he realized that he could not use the array formation to stop Li Yuanqing. He shouted anxiously, and an incomparably thick yellow flame suddenly fell from the sky. The clouds in the sky were like fuel for the flames. They burned and spat hot flames down. The flames surrounded Li Yuanqing like a whirlwind. How could Li Yuanqing fall for this? More than 10 fire spirit pills suddenly appeared in his hand, and he threw them behind him without any pity. The energy produced by the dozen or so fire spirit pills was extremely terrifying. In an instant, a majestic sea of fire was formed, changing the direction of the original whirlwind. After the whistling wind was blown open, he panicked and was dispersed by a random conflict. The flames landed on the ground below and burned fiercely in the forest. Li Yuanqing flapped his wings and flew out like a bird. In an instant, he passed through the last barrier and arrived at the edge of the canyon. This ravine was a natural barrier. The Azure Dragon and the other two had spent a lot of effort to finally escape here. There were still pursuers chasing after them. They were riding a green boat on the ravine. They thought that they would be safe after this. In the end, Li Yuanqing suddenly appeared behind them. Li Yuanqing did not say anything else. He summoned his Dharma origin idol and used the same method to build a bridge above the ravine, blocking the cruel and violent wind below. He stepped on the Dharma idol a few times and passed through the long and narrow ravine very coolly. Li Yuanqing's carefree appearance stunned the three of them. The three of them had spent a lot of effort to obtain such a treasure, thinking that their escape method was already very brilliant. However, who would have thought that there was actually an expert countless times more brilliant than them? Li Yuanqing was like a god. One had to know how powerful the violent wind below was. As long as it stuck to one's body, it could corrode one's bones and destroy their mind. They did not have much time to be shocked. Behind him, Huang Ling had already caught up. Huang Ling was stepping on a purple leaf. It was unknown what kind of Dharma treasure it was. In a short while, he arrived above the heads of the Azure Dragon trio. The Azure Dragon and the other two looked at Huang Ling in shock. Huang Ling looked down at them and threw a fireball at the small boat under their feet. The Azure Dragon trio shouted that the situation was bad when they saw this. A violent astral wind attacked from below. At this critical moment, Azure Dragon suddenly grabbed the tail of the flame rat. The flame rat originally spread out his body and was about to jump towards the other side. He was not too far from there to begin with. If he could survive it, it would not matter if he flew over with the strength of his body. However, his tail had already been grabbed, and his entire body immediately froze. The flame rat's eyes widened in shock as he suddenly felt like he was being stepped on. He looked up, shocked at the pair of legs that crossed above his head. He thought that his reaction was fast and stood at the bow, wanting to escape quickly. However, he did not expect to be caught up from behind. He grabbed his body, stepped on his back, and jumped over. At this moment, the strong wind arrived with a whistle and swallowed the flame rat. Azure Dragon and Back Dragon stepped on Flame Rat's body, jumped high, and landed at the edge of the other side at the critical moment. Only then did the two of them escape. In front of them, Huang Ling ignored them after throwing down the fireball and continued to chase after Li Yuanqing. Behind them, the pursuers were still slowly setting up the bridge. Run! Azure Dragon glanced at the green and yellow dots that were gradually disappearing from his vision. However, he did not know who the green-robed man was. Azure Dragon, we were saved by that guy, Black Dragon said in surprise. Idiot! That's the guy who exposed us. On the mountain, figures suddenly soared into the sky. Oh no, the old demons on the mountain are all out. Black Dragon looked anxiously and asked Azure Dragon, what should we do? What else can we do? Their target is not with us. Run. As Azure Dragon spoke, he could not help but glance at the ravine behind him. He had brought the flame rat here to be a scapegoat. He did not expect so many twists and turns in the process. His fate did not escape the fate of a scapegoat. Behind the Divine Fire sect, the majestic mountain stood there like a natural barrier. At this moment, a stream of light flashed past the foot of the mountain at an extremely fast speed. Behind the stream of light, another yellow fireball roared as it chased after it. The two of them left into the distance. At this moment, a thick black fog suddenly spread out from the mountain. The black fog spread extremely quickly and quickly swept Li Yuanqing, who was escaping. Li Yuanqing was not careful and could not dodge in time. He was really sucked in. Then, the yellow fireball was also swept in by the black fog. Not good. Before entering, the yellow fireball shouted and wanted to escape. However, the black fog spread so quickly that he had no room to escape and was swept in. The black fog in front of Li Yuanqing dissipated, revealing extreme ice and snow. The wind howled, and snow as sharp as blades slapped people's faces. A light circulated in front of Li Yuanqing and cut a gap in the wind. Behind him was Shan Ke, who was hugging the dying Master Wu Yin. They were really lucky. None of them who were captured by the Divine Fire sect could escape. They would all be killed and refined into puppets. However, just as they were captured, the Divine Fire sect planned to use troops against the outside world. They made a huge commotion, so the other party would not be able to continue refining puppets. Therefore, they temporarily imprisoned these people in the dungeon. Even so, their divine senses were largely destroyed. Li Yuanqing had briefly checked just now. The reason why Master Wu Yin was unconscious was because his divine sense had been imprisoned. Under the restraints of the powerful restriction, their divine senses fell into a deep sleep, and the restraints were constantly depleting their divine senses. If this continued, they would be tortured to death soon. The people of the Divine Fire sect used this method to control the time of their deaths. After this period of time, they would be able to refine a large number of puppets. At that time, they would return with a pile of fresh corpses, which was suitable for them to refine puppets. Li Yuanqing had just released his restrained divine sense. However, his divine sense was still too weak to regain control of his body, so he was still sleeping. Shan Ke followed closely behind Li Yuanqing and carefully took care of Master Wu Yin. However, he was really filled with resentment now that he was dragging such a burden along. Shan Ke looked at the majestic mountain in the depths of the ice world from afar and kept muttering, oh no, this is really bad. The commotion is too big. It has attracted the three immortals of the Black God Mountain. Shan Ke looked at Li Yuanqing bitterly. He was really killed by this person. Why did he have such an enemy? Supremacy, if you had left earlier, we would have been able to leave. But you insisted that I look for Master Wu Yin. In the end, he came out. But what should we do? How should we leave? I'm afraid we can't leave now. Shan Ke muttered a lot, but Li Yuanqing did not listen at all. Now that he had already fallen into someone else's array formation, he was no longer busy running around. Instead, he stopped and looked around. These people had some methods. At the very least, with his attainments in array formations and the huge improvement in his current strength, he had still fallen into their trap. Li Yuanqing was thinking about when they had begun to set up their array formation. He thought carefully according to the speed at which the array formation had been set up just now. Li Yuanqing guessed that it was very likely that the first time he summoned his Dharma origin idol and entered the divine fire sect, he had been targeted by the people on the mountain. They had long set up the array formation, but they happened to fall into a trap just now, which was why it looked so abrupt. After he entered, he did not see Huang Ling anymore. It seemed like he had separated the two of them. However, why were these guys not making a move? Li Yuanqing stood in midair and looked quietly at the majestic mountain in front of him. They were clearly at the foot of the mountain just now, but now, the mountain was 100 miles away from them. What do you think the three immortals of the Black God Mountain are? Li Yuanqing suddenly asked Shan Ke behind him. Shan Ke looked at Li Yuanqing with a frown. He did not know why his boss was still in the mood to care about these things at this time. He dared to barge in without knowing anything. Supremacy, you really don't know anything about this place? Why would I bring you here if I knew? I'd rather you didn't bring me here. Shan Ke pursed her lips and muttered, This Black God Mountain is a place that's famous far and wide. There are many mighty figures living on the mountain, and the most famous of them are naturally the three immortals. There's a white immortal called Bai Ji, a yellow immortal called Huang Tiancheng, and a purple immortal called the Calamity. The three immortals divided the Black God Mountain into three forces, and the many demons below are under their command.
Li Yuanqing nuddajant-li.
His eyes were fixed on the snow in front of him, and it was unknown what he was looking at. Supremacy, did you obtain some treasures? Why don't you take out some of those treasures to pay tribute to them later? Just treat it as losing money to avoid disaster. I've never offered anyone any tribute in my life. Li Yuanqing was very unyielding. After saying that, he took a step forward. Suddenly, the scenery in front of them changed, and they appeared at the foot of the mountain again. However, there were three fellows with different appearances beside the two of them. One of the three had an enchanting figure and feminine appearance. One was covered in yellow fur and had shifty eyes, and the other was burly and had a domineering aura. Congratulations for signing in successfully to the Black God Mountain. Reward received. Reward 1. Heaven-shaking hammer. Reward 2. 100 sets of secret manual thundercloud. Choose Reward 1. Successfully chosen. Reward issued. Li Yuanqing's eyes flashed, and a hammer flashed across his mind. Ha ha ha, you're quite interesting. The person who spoke was the feminine-looking man. He was dressed in white, and was probably the white immortal that Shan Ke mentioned. The purple-robed man behind him did not dawdle. He went up and said to Li Yuanqing with a rumbling voice, Kid, tell me honestly where your Dharma idol came from. If you can't explain it clearly, you won't be able to go anywhere today. Li Yuanqing looked at the three of them. All three of them had the strength of a 6th-grade supremacy. Moreover, they are demons. Their strength was even stronger. They had been entrenched here for countless years and had the home ground advantage. Their strength had increased greatly. If any conflict erupted with them here, it would definitely not be good. However, Li Yuanqing did not seem to realize this at all. Instead, he did not retreat at all. He said arrogantly, Why should I tell you? I don't think you can do anything to me. You? When the purple-robed man called Calamity heard Li Yuanqing's words, his eyes immediately widened. There was a faint purple color and lightning flowed in his eyes. He looked at Li Yuanqing in disbelief. He knew this kid had a temper at first, but he did not expect it to be so bad. Little guy, do you know what kind of people the three of us are? You dare to speak to us like this? I think you don't want your life anymore. Bai Ji sneered at Li Yuanqing. As soon as he saw Calamity being so angry, Bai Ji knew that Li Yuanqing would definitely not have a good time. He leisurely retreated to the side, thinking that this was going to be a good show. Wasn't it easy for Calamity to deal with such a young kid? At the side, Huang Tiancheng frowned and sized up Li Yuanqing, as if he was carefully searching for who this guy was related to. However, he could not find such a person who could be connected. He was not old and looked very impulsive. Perhaps he was a disciple of some big shot. However, since he had already landed in their territory and had treasures on him, then these were all treasures that he had brought them. He suddenly said, "Kid, you better give some reason. If you can't come up with any reason, do you know what will happen to you if you dare to speak to us like this?" A purple flame suddenly ignited on Li Yuanqing's body and enveloped him. "Even if you can occupy a region here, you're just a group of local snakes. You see that I'm not strong enough and want to bully me. Come and try. How dare a little guy like you be so arrogant?" As Calamity spoke, a heavy hammer appeared in his hand. There were a few thick lightning bolts twisted and entangled on the hammer. At this moment, Huang Tianqing suddenly stopped him. "Wait, what do you want to do? Let me tell you, this kid is mine today. Neither of you are allowed to interfere. I'll give you some of the things when the time comes." Huang Tianqing walked to Li Yuanqing's side with a dark expression and pointed at the purple flames around his body. "Is this purple flame earth fire?" "That's right. What's your relationship with Huafeng?" Li Yuanqing thought for a moment and said to him, "Huafeng is my master." When Huang Tianqing heard this, his eyes immediately widened. He walked forward with concern and looked at Li Yuanqing. "Little brother, you're not injured, right? What injuries can I get? Don't tell me you want to use this to get close to me. It won't help. Is Huafeng really your master?" When the Calamity heard this, he slowly put away the hammer in his hand. The killing intent on his body decreased greatly. Huang Tianqing walked to Li Yuanqing's side and looked around. He nodded to himself and said, "It can't be wrong. Although the density of this flame is slightly lower, this aura can't be wrong. I didn't expect Senior Huafeng to have such a disciple in his lifetime. We even bumped into him. This is really fate." At this moment, Bai Ji walked up and sized up Li Yuanqing. "Kid, why didn't you say so earlier? If you had said earlier that Senior Huafeng was your master, the three of us wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble. No wonder you have so many treasures on you, and that divine Dharma idol. I wonder how you obtained this Dharma idol." Li Yuanqing said perfunctorily, "When I was traveling outside, I accidentally bumped into an immortal cave." "I see. You really have a lot of opportunities." After the three of them confirmed Li Yuanqing's identity, they no longer had much hostility. Li Yuanqing was a little surprised. He had originally wanted to temporarily hide in his domain space, but he did not expect them to become friends. "I wonder if there's anything else? If not, I have something else to do." Li Yuanqing took the initiative to bid farewell after hearing the three of them. Huang Tianqing looked at Li Yuanqing with a smile and said, "Young friend, why are you in such a hurry? Since we have such an opportunity to meet here, it's not just for a short while. If you're willing to give us the honor to sit in your residence, it'll be a great honor for us." "Senior, you're too polite. I'm just a nameless junior." "Senior, you're so polite. If you need anything, just say it." Huang Tianqing smiled and said, "Kid, you're quite straightforward. You have the demeanor of old Senior Huafeng." The two brothers at the side also laughed. "Since you've said so, I won't hide it anymore. I saw Huang Ling chasing after you in such an exasperated manner just now. You must have brought something precious with you. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so anxious." "Senior, what do you mean?" Li Yuanqing looked at the three of them warily. "I don't mean anything else. It's just that there are indeed some things in the Divine Fire sect that we can use. If you don't mind, we can make a deal and treat it as helping each other." Li Yuanqing thought for a moment and looked at Huang Tianqing. "I wonder what Senior needs?" When Huang Tianqing saw Li Yuanqing like this, he knew what was going on. He smiled and said, "Actually, it's not important. The Divine Fire sect has been trading with us for many years. We bought some herbs from there for our cultivation. Recently, they have a lot of fire spirit fruits, and we use them more. Did you enter their treasure vault?" Calamity did not beat around the bush and asked directly, "If you have more fire spirit fruits in your hands, we are willing to raise the price and accept it. If you steal other materials, you can sell them to us too. The price will not disappoint you." "How much do you need, Senior?" "That depends on how many you have." Even though they were already mentally prepared, the three immortals of the Black God Mountain could not help but gape when they saw Li Yuanqing take out so many herbs at once. They knew that Li Yuanqing was bold enough to sneak into the treasure vault of the Divine Fire sect and steal their things. Otherwise, why would Huang Ling chase after him in such an exasperated manner? However, he did not expect this kid to be so bold as to empty the entire treasure vault. Kid, what kind of method is this? Although I can't say that the Divine Fire sect's treasure vault is an extremely dangerous place, it's still heavily guarded and has very powerful mechanisms. How did you do it? Even Calamity with a bad temper could not help but admire Li Yuanqing after seeing this scene. At the very least, he definitely did not have the ability to carry those array formations and steal so many treasures from the Divine Fire sect. Li Yuanqing smiled and looked at them. I don't have any other abilities, but I have some attainments in array formations. It's all because Master taught me well. Hearing his words, the three of them knew what to do. Thinking back, Li Yuanqing had such a good opportunity to obtain such a powerful Dharma idol. They guessed that this guy must have done many sneaky things. Li Yuanqing had no use for the various materials piled up like a mountain. He still had some rare things on hand, but he could easily grow a pile of these herbs. If he could find a place to sell them, it would save him trouble. Huang Tianqing casually checked a few materials beside the pile and nodded in satisfaction. He glanced at the other two people, as if he could see the satisfaction in their eyes. Not bad. We're very satisfied with the quality of your fruits. It's all thanks to you. Otherwise, our supply of materials would probably have problems after the people from the Divine Fire sect die. When Li Yuanqing heard this, he suddenly had a thought and asked, I heard that the people from the Divine Fire sect were tricked. They seem to have been tricked by an evil cultivator. Is that so? Huang Tianqing pinched his fingers and calculated a few times. He shook his head slightly and said, the things they do are not good. Sooner or later, someone will discover something. I can only say that they reap what they sow. Li Yuanqing probed again. Senior, do you know who Old Man Yushan is? Old Man Yushan? Where did you hear that from? When Huang Tianqing heard this name, he suddenly became nervous. Li Yuanqing smiled and replied, actually, I accidentally heard it from Master. He said that everyone from the Divine Fire sect had been tricked by this fellow called Old Man Yushan. It's actually him? Bai Ji narrowed his eyes, looking like a white-faced fox. I was wondering who had the ability to refine so many supremacy-level puppets in such a large number. So it's Old Man Yushan. That guy has returned. I'm not surprised at all. I wonder who this Old Man Yushan is to have such a resounding name. Seeing that Li Yuanqing was so curious about this, Huang Tianqing asked, didn't your master tell you these things? You have to know that the matter between Senior Huafeng and Old Man Yushan was widely known. I really don't know about that. As soon as I mentioned this, Master avoided it. It's as if he's very unwilling to mention this past. As his disciple, I can't ask too much. That's true. Huang Tianqing believed Li Yuanqing's explanation. Old Man Yushan is not a kind person. Back then, he was famous for being evil. After cultivating for so many years, I've long heard that he was killed. I didn't expect him to still be alive. It's really not easy for such a thing to happen. Isn't that old fellow already dead? I don't even know how many pieces of news I've heard about him dying. I can't believe I can still see him come out alive. The three of them looked at each other and sighed again. Bai Ji said with lingering fear, if it's that old fellow, the three of us are really lucky. If we wait for that fellow to attack our Black God Mountain, how can we escape? That's true. However, that Old Man Yushan has disappeared for so many years. His strength must be much weaker than before. Even if he really wants to attack us, we can naturally deal with him. Calamity did not care about this. He looked at the war hammer in his hand and felt more confident. Bai Ji glanced at him and said disdainfully, why don't you take a look at your own strength? If that old man really attacks, the three of us won't be his match. We'll probably be played by him and won't even know how we died. Then let him try. I'd like to see what the old man has left. Calamity snorted, as if he was very unconvinced. Bai Ji could not be bothered to argue with him. The two of them could not be together no matter what. Huang Tianqing felt helpless when he saw the two of them like this. As long as these two people got together, they would always argue. If not for him mediating, How could the three of them have lived together peacefully on the Black God Mountain for so many years? However, the main problem now was not the green-robed old man, but Li Yuanqing. He sized up Li Yuanqing and did not seem to be lying. From the beginning to the end, he seemed to be telling the truth. Moreover, this guy indeed had some methods in his hands. He also had extraordinary attainments in array formations and the seed of the purple flame earth fire. All of this was so true that he could not find any fault with it. He calculated in his heart that the number of herbs Li Yuanqing had brought was a lot. No matter what, it should be hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. While the two brothers were still conflicted, Huang Tiancheng turned to Li Yuanqing and chatted with him with a smile. "Little brother, we've already seen your materials. They completely meet our requirements. What do you want?" "I don't want anything. It's enough to exchange for some spirit stones or materials." Although Li Yuanqing said this very lightly, Huang Tiancheng knew that this kid was not so easy to deal with. "Little brother, you're young and promising. I'm afraid that just exchanging for some spirit stones won't be able to satisfy your appetite. I wonder if you have any treasures you want? If I can provide them in my treasure vault, you can take them." "Senior, just give it to me as you deem fit." Huang Tiancheng stood up with a smile and walked in with Li Yuanqing. "Little brother, you're so young and promising, but you haven't taken out a suitable weapon. Have you not encountered a suitable Dharma treasure?" Li Yuanqing's heart skipped a beat, and he said regretfully, "To be honest, Senior, I indeed lack a suitable Dharma treasure. However, I just came down from Master's Mountain and am still exploring. I wonder what weapon you like to use? When I was on the mountain, I used a sword." As the two of them spoke, Huang Tiancheng had already led him to a thick stone door. Huang Tiancheng took out a token and locked it above the stone door. The moment the token touched the stone door, it sank into a small nest. The stone door swallowed the token. After a slow transformation, the stone door slowly opened. As soon as the stone door was opened, the noble aura inside leaked out. A large number of spirit stones piled up into a mountain, refracting the light of the fluorite on the wall. It was very dazzling. On a wide shelf on the other wall, Dharma treasures were displayed one after another. There was a protective array formation on the outside that sealed their auras. During the off-season, some of their auras were sealed by the array formation on their backs, but they could still sense the restless power inside. Li Yuanqing went straight to the shelf and looked at the dazzling array of treasures. He did not feel like stopping. Huang Tiancheng was really an expert at plundering treasures. Although none of the artifacts displayed were rare, there were many high-quality items. In particular, the Dharma treasures on the shelves at the highest point could not be hidden. They were domineering. Li Yuanqing's eyes immediately landed on one of the green swords. When this green sword was placed there, it was very low-key. Its body was suffused with a faint green light, and one could clearly see lightning patterns engraved on the sword. Huang Tiancheng noticed Li Yuanqing's gaze and smiled brightly. He waved his hand and took off the sword. On the hilt of the sword were the words, "Wind Thunder Sword." Huang Tiancheng held the sword with both hands and looked at it lovingly before slowly handing it to Li Yuanqing. "Little brother, your eyesight is quite accurate. You immediately took a fancy to the top sword I have here." Huang Tiancheng's tone was filled with pity. As the saying goes, a sword is compatible with a hero. This Wind Thunder Sword has followed me for so many years and has never shown its might. If you can unleash its power, it will be a form of fate. Li Yuanqing caught the sword in his hand and repeated its name. Wind Thunder Sword. He held the hilt of the sword and slowly poured the power in his body into the sword. The Wind Thunder Sword seemed to have been summoned by something. Its entire body began to buzz. The sword trembled slightly and twisted gently in Li Yuanqing's hand, as if he was adapting to his new master. Li Yuanqing took a deep breath and gently stroked the sword with his other hand. He could not help but sigh. "Good sword." "Ha ha ha." Huang Tiancheng let out a hearty laugh and gently patted Li Yuanqing's back. He said proudly, "Being able to give this treasure to you today can be considered to have fulfilled one of my wishes. I've always been thinking about this Wind Thunder Sword, thinking that I could let it see the light of day one day. Today, I've finally fulfilled this wish. Thank you, Senior." Li Yuanqing really loved this Wind Thunder Sword. then the materials will be yours. After Li Yuanqing finished speaking, Huang Tianqing was unwilling. Sigh, you can't say that, Huang Tianqing said seriously. I think you're fated to have this wind thunder sword. As for the materials, I naturally have to settle the score. I can't lack spirit stones from a junior like you. Senior, if that's the case, I can't accept this sword no matter what. That's it. Take a look at my treasure vault. If you need anything else, take it. I'm afraid that's inappropriate. There's nothing inappropriate about it. Since we're trading with each other, we naturally have to be fair. You brought so many materials for us today that we can use them for a period of time. Therefore, the excess materials here won't be used for a while anyway. It's fine for you to take them. Bai Ji and the calamity behind Huang Tianqing could not help but be stunned. Huang Tianqing was famous for being stingy. He especially liked to collect some treasures. Everything he collected was placed in his treasure vault. It was very precious. However, when he met this little guy today, he was actually willing to let go of such a huge treasure vault for Li Yuanqing. It seemed like this guy had really invested a lot. Little guy, you've gotten a huge bargain, Bai Ji said happily. Why are you still refusing when such a miser can give you so many benefits? Hurry up and seize this opportunity. He's going to change his words later. Huang Tianqing waved his hand and said, Don't listen to his nonsense. Choose well here and tell me when you've chosen something. Don't worry. We'll wait outside for a while. Just come out after you're done. After Huang Tianbao was done, he left the treasure vault with the three of them. After the three of them left the treasure vault, they followed Huang Tianqing through a few turns and appeared in a dark water prison. The water in the water prison emitted a densing energy. This gloomy aura directly sealed off everyone's strength and even constantly corroded them. In the water prison, a cell door opened. Huang Tianqing and the other two appeared at the entrance of the cell. A thin figure was firmly nailed to the wall, especially between his eyebrows. It was a blood-red nail that was deeply inserted into his head. Huang Ling's body was nailed to the wall, unable to move. There was a faint fluctuation of divine sense on his body. What do you plan to do with him? Bai Ji raised his hand in front of him, looking very disgusted by the environment. Calamity crossed his arms and said in a low voice, Since the Divine Fire Sect has been targeted by Old Man Yushan, I'm afraid we're not safe here. Since Senior Huafeng is helpless against Old Man Yushan, I'm afraid we should really leave this place. No way. It's been so many years. No matter what, it won't be our turn, right? We can't take such a risk. Huang Tianqing was indeed worthy of his special racial talent. The treasures in the treasure vault were dazzling. Li Yuanqing lacked these natural treasures from the immortal world. He originally thought that he would have to spend some time searching for the materials he needed for the medicinal fields. In the end, he casually found most of them. This made Li Yuanqing very happy. He did not expect there to be an unexpected surprise. However, the way these three people did things was very strange. The abilities of the three immortals of the Black God Mountain were strong enough, but their temper was not easy to figure out. Li Yuanqing came out of the treasure vault and walked out along the aisle. Only Huang Tianqing and Shan Ke were left in the hall outside. The other two had disappeared. Senior Huang. Li Yuanqing took out the item he had chosen just now and placed it in front of Huang Tianqing. Huang Tianqing took a look and Li Yuanqing clearly saw his cheek twitch slightly. This time, Li Yuanqing had finally picked out a lot of materials that he could use. There were even some materials that he did not have much in stock to begin with. Looking at Huang Tianqing, he had probably hit a sore spot. Senior, are you all right? Huang Tianqing coughed lightly and said, It's fine. If these are all necessary things for you, then take them all. You have good taste and chose a lot of treasures. It seems like you've learned a lot about materials from your master, right? Master taught me well. Take it. These materials are all expensive and are worth some spirit stones. How about this? I'll take out another 100,000 spirit stones for you. What do you think? Li Yuanqing had chosen so many treasures because he was calculating in his heart to offset the price of his things. It was already expensive for him to take these things. Moreover, there was also the Wind Thunder Sword given by Huang Tianqing. It was a good treasure. How could he ask Huang Tianqing for so many spirit stones now? He hurriedly said, Senior, you're too polite. These materials are all extremely precious. If they were to be sold outside, they would definitely cost a lot. Now that I can find them here, it can be considered to have saved me a lot of trouble. I feel guilty. How can I accept your spirit stones? Huang Tianqing smiled when he saw how sensible Li Yuanqing was. He nodded gently and looked at Li Yuanqing. There's no need to say anything else. It's mainly because we were once indebted to your master many years ago. It's our honor to have the chance to meet his disciple. Senior, you're really a loyal person. What do you mean by loyal? Since we're cultivating in the same region, we naturally have to help each other. Moreover, Senior is kind-hearted and has never looked down on us demons. His breadth of mind is countless times wider than ordinary humans. Although Huang Tianqing was a famous figure who usually dominated a region, he was still grateful to Huafeng when he recalled the past. Just as he had said, Huafeng was a righteous person and had his own beliefs. He was not like others who trampled on the demons wantonly, so he had made many good friends with the demons. Li Yuanqing had a new understanding of Huafeng. He did not expect that old fellow Huafeng to be such a glorious figure before he sealed himself up. In that case, it was not difficult to understand why Wang Lan was so jealous of Huafeng. However, if Wang Lan heard these words, he would probably curse. No matter what, Wang Lan was still Li Yuanqing's master. Huafeng was just a master that Li Yuanqing had fabricated. Senior is also a loyal person. As Huang Tianqing spoke, he suddenly looked at Li Yuanqing and asked, I haven't seen him for many years. When will I have the chance to meet him? Li Yuanqing replied regretfully, if Senior had said this before, I could have introduced you. It's just that now, Master. What's wrong with Senior Huafeng? Huang Tianqing felt as if his heart was being grabbed. He was very nervous. Li Yuanqing hurriedly explained, Senior Huang, you're overthinking. Master is fine now, but there's something he has to do personally recently. He has to go to the Central Continent. Central Continent? That's right. After Huang Tianqing heard about the Central Continent, he frowned. Why did Senior Huafeng go there? It's so far away. How dangerous is it? The pity in Huang Tianqing's words was obvious. Master has something very important to do. He said that he has to go personally. I think Master has already made up his mind. Huang Tianqing shook his head helplessly, his brows filled with sorrow. I originally wanted to see Senior again. From the looks of it, I'm afraid I won't have such an opportunity in my life. What a pity. Huang Tianqing became even more sad. He looked at the treasures in front of him and called Li Yuanqing to put them all away. Then, he looked at the only disciple left behind by Huafeng and sighed. Senior doesn't care about fame and fortune all his life. I believe this is also for the only knot in his heart. Senior Huang should be talking about the soul in Master's horsetail whisk, right? That's right. I heard that the old senior is in seclusion because of this matter. It's been hundreds of years. I didn't expect him to still be running around. I've never heard Master mention who the spirit in the horsetail whisk is. It seems to be Master's former dual cultivation partner. Huang Tianqing shook his head slightly and said, It's hard to say. If you want to know, ask the old senior himself. It's really difficult for an outsider like me to explain. Supremacy, come and take a look. Master Wu Yan is awake. As the two of them were talking, Master Wu Yan, who was in Shan Kei's arms, suddenly moved slowly. Master Wu Yan's face was pale like a corpse. His soul was very unstable. It was barely in his body now, and could not be like his body for the time being. His strength had also decreased greatly. Now, he was like a half-crippled person. He was extremely weak. He forced his eyes open and looked at everyone in front of him. His gaze first swept across their faces before landing on Huang Tianqing's face. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Why am I here? Master Wu Yan forced out these words and coughed violently again. Shan Kei at the side hurriedly patted his back. Master, your body is at its weakest now. You can't get angry. Li Yuanqing also went forward and said to him, Master Wu Yan, your body is very weak now. It's better to say less. Although your Dao base has suffered some damage, it should be able to recover in time. When Master Wu Yan heard Li Yuanqing's words, he finally recalled the nightmare. The experiences of the past few days were really unbearable. The humiliation and torture he had suffered in the Divine Fire sect made his divine sense suffer in purgatory every day. He just carried it on. There was nowhere to hide. There was a self-protection mechanism for physical torture. After the shock passed, he would hide in that empty shell and no longer have to endure it. However, the torture of the divine sense was so real and direct that there was no room to dodge at all. He could only forcefully endure it until his divine sense could no longer hold on and collapsed. His already pale face looked even paler. Where are they? Master Wu Yin looked at Li Yuanqing in panic and grabbed his hand. Where are they? Let's leave quickly. They're all a group of lunatics. Don't be caught by them. If you're caught by them, you're finished. He was very agitated now. His divine sense, which was already trembling nonstop, was about to be separated from his body. Seeing this, Huang Tianqing stretched out a hand and gently placed it on his shoulder. A gentle force fused into his body and temporarily calmed his emotions. Huang Tianqing's voice was very cold, but it was so clear. It was as if he was telling him firmly by his ear, "Your divine sense is very unstable now. Control your emotions and don't be so agitated." Master Wu Yin calmed down and panted slowly. Everything was so quiet. There were no more painful memories. All of this seemed to be better. He seemed to be in a very safe place, but he was not sure where he was. "Don't worry, you're in the Black God Mountain now. No one will be able to do anything to you here. Rest here and recuperate first. It's fine to leave after you recover." After saying that, Huang Tianqing slowly stood up, as if he really planned to take these people in. Li Yuanqing rejected his kindness and immediately said, "I still have some things to do. I'm afraid I can't stay here for long." Huang Tianqing looked at him in confusion and said, "Although we have already dealt with the supremacies in the Divine Fire sect, the outside world has already spread rumors. They all know that someone has stolen all the treasures in the Divine Fire sect. You are their main target now. Senior, don't worry. I still have some methods. It's not difficult to deal with some thieves. What about the two of them? They're both injured. I'm afraid it's not a good time to walk around." Master Wu Yin had recovered from his emotions. He raised his head and looked at Huang Tianqing gratefully. "Senior, thank you for your concern. I will definitely try my best to repay your kindness in the future. I still have to return to the pavilion immediately to report the situation." After he regained his composure, he had his own guesses about this place. This fellow said that this was the Black God Mountain, which was behind the Divine Fire sect. Although he did not know how Li Yuanqing and Shan Ke were related to the people on the Black God Mountain, at least he was safe now. But he had more important things to do. This time, the Golden Bamboo Mountain had suffered such a heavy blow. He had to report it to his superiors immediately. He had yet to report the situation here, and the headquarters did not know anything about the situation here. Seeing that it was useless to ask them to stay, Huang Tianqing no longer insisted. He nodded gently and said to them, "Since you all have your own things to do, I won't keep you any longer. I can let you rest here for the time being. If you want to leave any time, you can leave on your own." "Thank you, Senior." Li Yuanqing nodded slightly to express his gratitude. When he raised his head again, Huang Tianqing had already disappeared. Shan Ke behind him supported Master Wu Yin and slowly sat up. Master Wu Yin looked at Li Yuanqing with a complicated expression. "I didn't expect to have to trouble Brother Zhao to save me from that purgatory. I won't forget your kindness. If you need anything in the future, just say the word." Li Yuanqing did not care much about this and said indifferently, "It's nothing. Brother Zhao is really a hero. Back then, I felt that Brother Zhao must be an extraordinary person since you could take out such a treasure. I didn't expect that I could rely on this relationship today to be saved by you." Shan Ke watched the two of them from the side and smiled foolishly. Suddenly, he remembered his mission and said to Master Wu Yin, "Master, Supremacy Zhao is mainly lacking some materials this time, so he wants to ask you if you have any connections. If you can help Supremacy gather them, it will be a good thing. Is that so?" Master Wu Yin was so excited that he wanted to sit up, but his body was in pain again. "I'm afraid I really can't help you with anything else. But when it comes to treasures, Brother Zhao has really found the right person." Master Wu Yin took out a token and stuffed it into Li Yuanqing's hand. "Master, what is this for?" "Brother Zhao, accept this token first. Consider it my repayment. If you don't accept it, I won't be able to let go of my old face. Li Yuanqing could not refuse, so he agreed and took the token. On the token were the words, Wu Xiao Pavilion. Wu Xiao Pavilion? Shan Ke at the side also came up curiously, as if he did not know what this was. Master Wu Yan pressed his chest and coughed lightly for a while. He explained, Brother Zhao, it's normal that you've never heard of the Wu Xiao Pavilion. It's just that most of the people in this pavilion keep a low profile and don't interact with the outside world. It's just that this pavilion has entered half of the business on this continent. The Golden Bamboo Mountain is a small auction under the name of the Wu Xiao Pavilion. Seeing that the two of them did not understand this, Master Wu Yan did not explain further. He only said, this is our pavilion's token. As long as you hold this, you can receive VIP treatment wherever you go. After Master Wu Yan slowly regained some mobility, Li Yuanqing left Huang Tiancheng's cave abode with Master Wu Yan and Shan Ke. Li Yuanqing had something important to do, so it was not convenient for him to stay here for long. He did persuade Master Wu Yan to stay there for a while longer, so that he could recover from his injuries. However, Master Wu Yan was in a hurry to return to his sect to report the situation. Li Yuanqing had never heard of such an organization before. This was the first time he had heard of it. The form of their organization was quite rigorous. At the very least, it could be seen from Master Wu Yan's actions. He was severely injured, yet he had to rush back to report. Regarding the materials, Li Yuanqing had already picked out most of the materials he needed this time. There were two types that he had not found yet, so he told Wu Yan about them. Wu Yan patted his chest and guaranteed that he would look for it as soon as he returned. He would inform Li Yuanqing immediately after he found it. Li Yuanqing wanted to thank him, but Wu Yan refused to accept his gratitude. This narrow escape made him respect Li Yuanqing from the bottom of his heart. After Li Yuanqing stirred up trouble inside, the Divine Fire sect in front of them was already in a complete mess. Without anyone guarding the array formation inside, it was even more useless now. The originally orderly sect had already been invaded. In the distance, he could see flames burning everywhere. There were many figures moving through them, and there were constant explosions. Li Yuanqing did not think of helping these people who wanted to steal. It was just that it happened to cause such a situation now. Coupled with the Black God Mountain and the three immortals, the so-called supremacy Huang Ling would definitely not have a good ending if he fell into their hands. The Divine Fire sect had already gradually declined, and its flames were even weaker. The mineral veins below were mercilessly dug up. After these people rushed in, they realized that the treasures were stolen by others. They were all furious. However, someone had spread the news of Li Yuanqing and the others. Now, all the demons outside knew that the treasure this time had been intercepted by two humans. The person who spread this news was naturally Azure Dragon. Azure Dragon was lucky. Seeing that he was already being chased, he did not expect that there would be someone in front who would attract more firepower and take away all the powerful figures. Instead, he escaped with Black Dragon. Moreover, the black fog had sucked in all the people inside and isolated them outside, as if it did not care about them at all. This was basically giving them a big way out. Azure Dragon, who was originally frightened, had already fled. He even went around spreading the news and spreading the external characteristics of the two of them. Li Yuanqing did not mind this. After removing the restriction on Shan Ke, he released him. This guy was originally brought here to scout the way. Now that he was no longer of much use to Li Yuanqing, he let him go. Shan Ke was naturally grateful for this. He had thought that it was a situation of certain death, but in the end, the tables had turned and he had survived intact. Moreover, he had gained a lot this time. Li Yuanqing had always been a generous person and had casually given Shan Ke many benefits. He could not earn these treasures no matter how many years he worked hard outside. Just by making a trip here, he had earned a huge sum of money. It made him feel very happy. The depression and complaints he had felt had also lessened. He even did not want to leave Li Yuanqing and wanted to continue working with him. However, Li Yuanqing did not need a helper like him. After casually sending him away, he rushed to the Nameless Mountain. Nameless Mountain was the cave abode that Wang Lan had arranged for him. The cave abode was not big, but fortunately, there was a mineral vein that had taken shape below. It was enough for Li Yuanqing to use. Moreover, Wang Lan had already set up most of the things here in advance. After Li Yuanqing arrived, he saw a complete cave abode. There was a simple restriction around the cave abode. However, Li Yuanqing had a token in his hand, so he could enter and exit at will. Further in was a very wide hall. At the bottom of it was another, very heavy stone. The entire stone floor was engraved with a very profound spirit-gathering array. Every single room in this cave abode had a spirit-gathering array. In other words, no matter where one was, one could sense a very rich aura of the array. This was naturally important to cultivators. Firstly, there was no need to talk about the convenience of cultivation. More importantly, he could continuously nurture his meridans. From the outside, this place did not look very big, but after entering, he realized that it was still a different world inside. There were a dozen rooms in all, each unusually wide. Li Yuanqing happily walked around and had already settled most of the rooms. Of course, most of these rooms were used as his medicinal field. He had so many materials on hand now that he could make some medicinal fields first. Originally, the sect would take a lot more every month, so they had accumulated a lot. Li Yuanqing decided to change his mind and started to set up the array. Every room here was very wide. Although it was not as big as the medicinal field, it was enough for Li Yuanqing. The medicinal herbs he planted did not need much space. He only needed to plant a few every month, and it would be enough for him to use for a long time. Besides, it would be troublesome to sell these huge herbs. According to the specifications of the sect, he first set up a set of array formations. Then, he laid down the soil that he had brought out from the sect and completed a brand new set of array formations. He also carefully sowed the seeds that were left behind. Although the growth efficiency of the seeds was very high with the help of the array formation, he still needed to wait for a day and night. After those materials grew out, Li Yuanqing would water them with the divine origin water. At that time, the plants watered by the divine origin water would be strengthened. Li Yuanqing's plan to make medicinal herbs could be considered to have taken a very successful step. Just thinking about it made one yearn for it. After Li Yuanqing settled down the medicinal herbs in his hands, he returned to his temporary residence and took out a hammer and a sword. This hammer was the heaven-shaking hammer he had obtained from signing in on the Black God Mountain. Ever since he arrived in the immortal world, the treasures he obtained from signing in had become even more precious. He had yet to test the strength of this hammer, so he didn't know how much it was worth. However, from the powerful pressure emanating from the hammer, one could tell that this item was definitely not simple. He first put the hammer aside and took out the Wind Thunder Sword. It was quite handy with this Wind Thunder Sword, and this Dharma treasure was quite compatible with him. It had been a long time since he had used the sword technique in his hand. Li Yuanqing casually waved the Wind Thunder Sword, and a gust of wind seemed to whistle out from it. However, the strength of this aura was naturally self-evident. Li Yuanqing caressed the sword lovingly. He was born with no resistance to swords. Just like in the treasure vault, after taking a look, he was determined to get this item back. Now that he was holding it in his hand, it was as if it was about to burst out. He nodded in satisfaction. He still admired the strength of the treasure he had chosen. However, he still needed to train hard over time before he could finally unleash his strongest effect. Li Yuanqing put the sword away properly and pressed it casually between his eyebrows. The sword disappeared. He picked up the hammer again. How powerful was this heaven-shaking hammer? Ever since he obtained the Dharma Origin Idol last time, Li Yuanqing cherished the items he had signed in for more. If a Dharma Origin Idol was already so powerful and could continuously level up, what kind of effect could this heaven-shaking hammer help him obtain? Li Yuanqing was filled with anticipation. He stroked the ancient-looking hammer. There were some flower and bird patterns engraved on it. If it were placed there, it would look like an ordinary hammer. It was even difficult to arouse their interest. What kind of power did this simple hammer have with such a title like that? Li Yuanqing flipped his hand, and a golden ball appeared in his hand. This ball itself had an extremely strong structure, and it was also enhanced by Li Yuanqing's reinforced array formation. It was a gadget that Li Yuanqing used as a base. Although it looked inconspicuous, its hardness was definitely shocking. Li Yuanqing placed the small ball in front of him, slowly picked up the hammer and swung it down heavily. Boom! A violent thud spread in all directions from his cave abode. Li Yuanqing gaped at the dust in front of him. Not only was the small ball on the ground smashed into powder by this hammer, but a 10-foot-deep hole was also created in the thick stone slab. It had to be known that he had not used any strength just now, nor had he even activated his spiritual power. He had only used his physical strength to casually smash down. This thing smashed the entire mountain and caused it to shake for a long time. Li Yuanqing had never expected him to have such a powerful effect. The effect shocked him. Outside Nameless Mountain, Wang Lan appeared on the mountaintop in a flash. He spread out his divine sense and probed inside. Li Yuanqing sensed Wang Lan's divine sense and hurriedly ran out of the cave abode. Wang Lan looked at Li Yuanqing in confusion. Li Yuanqing's body had already been cleaned up. He had blown away all the dust, but his body was clean. However, the deep pit in the cave abode was still there. Moreover, he had taken a long time to choose a training room. He had to choose again. What is it? Li Yuanqing coughed lightly and pretended to be calm. It's nothing. There was a small accident when I was refining pills just now. I've troubled Master. A small accident? Wang Lan looked at the mountaintop below. Your commotion doesn't seem like a small accident. Just now, I wanted to refine some fire spirit pills. Who would have thought that the power of the purple flame earth fire was too great? I didn't control it well and made the alchemy furnace explode. The materials inside caused an explosion, and I didn't control it well, so this happened. Wang Lan glared at Li Yuanqing and warned, "Didn't you know before? Before you start refining pills, you must take precautions around you. Remember to set up the array formation first. Otherwise, a mistake can destroy the entire cave abode. You don't even know this." Li Yuanqing took the opportunity to argue. I saw that Master didn't set up those defensive array formations in the past, so I thought that it should be fine. Moreover, I was indeed a little anxious when I came to the cave abode and made you worry. How can you compare to me? Wang Lan said. Ignorant boy. You don't know who this man standing in front of you is, and you dare to compare yourself to him. Wang Lan shook his head helplessly and asked him, Are you injured? Not really. It's good that you're not injured. All right, you can go back first. How's the damage in the cave abode? I'll go over and take a look for you later and help you rearrange the damaged thing. Li Yuanqing hurriedly said, There's no need to trouble Master. There's nothing damaged inside. I'll set it up myself later and deal with the defensive array formation. The more Wang Lan looked at Li Yuanqing, the more suspicious he became. What did you do? Where did you come back from? Why didn't you report to me? I went to the Divine Fire Sect and met a few good friends of Senior Huafeng. I greeted them, and they even gave me some materials. That's why I came back in a hurry to refine pills. Does that old man Huafeng have any other friends? Wang Lanyi complained. They said they met Senior Firewind hundreds of years ago. Wang Lan snorted and said, Huafeng usually likes to put on airs. It's normal for him to like to make friends with some bad friends. Don't associate with those friends of his. There are no good people, remember? Li Yuanqing nodded gently and said very obediently, Master is right. Although he said that, he was still holding the Dharma treasure of the other party in his hand. Wang Lan was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something. He turned around and instructed, Come and find me early tomorrow. I'll bring you to the alchemy pavilion. My disciple doesn't even have the name of an alchemist. How can this do? Thank you, Master. In the blink of an eye, it was the next morning. It was rare for Wang Lan to be on time. He arrived at Li Yuanqing's cave abode early. He brought Li Yuanqing and drove a small boat north, fearlessly passing through many people's territories. Even though they were fast enough, Li Yuanqing could still feel waves of divine sense surging out from behind him and sweeping towards them in dissatisfaction. Wang Lan was too arrogant. He did not take others seriously at all. If an ordinary person passed by other people's territory, they would more or less take a detour. However, he did not. He just walked straight north like this. Along the way, he provoked many people. However, he did have enough strength to back him up. When the others saw that it was this old fellow, they instantly lost his appetite and cursed before letting them be. Li Yuanqing was also worried for Wang Lan. This old man always did things like this. No wonder he didn't have any friends around him. His sworn enemy, Huafeng, seemed to have many old friends. Even those demons had a good relationship with Huafeng. Only Wang Lan's temper was so bad that it was unbearable to look at. He did not seem to have any particularly good friends. The curses from the people below did not change Wang Lan at all. Instead, he became even more unreasonable. Even when he passed by the borders of many large sects, he had no intention of slowing down or taking a detour. But this guy did have some reputation. The two of them traveled north for thousands of miles before finally stopping in front of a magnificent city. In fact, based on the situation in the immortal world, the human race faced very little danger. In the immortal world, the human race was too prosperous and completely suppressed the demons. If it was just because of the danger of the demons, it would not be necessary to form a large city to stabilize the situation. However, in the immortal world, some very unusual disasters would erupt every few years. According to the people here, it was the cycle of 5 elements, the luck of heaven and earth. Therefore, other than large sects, there were also many itinerant cultivators coming and going in this very prosperous city in the immortal world. They were exchanging goods here, exchanging information with each other, and relying on this powerful defense to avoid danger. In human cities, large-scale violence was generally prohibited. If they encountered any trouble, as long as they could hide in the city, they would be half as safe. The city in front of Li Yuanqing was called Tianyun City. Tianyun City was the central city within thousands of kilometers. The sects of all sizes had a very close relationship with Tianyun City. Although Wang Lan usually liked to wander around those small black markets, if he needed a large amount of materials, he would have to purchase them in Tianyun City. The walls of Tianyun City were extremely tall, like an incomparably vast barrier that stood on the horizon. After the two of them arrived, they flew much lower. Li Yuanqing looked up and saw that the towering city wall was as steep as a natural cliff. Standing under the city wall, he felt so small. That weak figure was nothing in front of the city wall. There were countless guards on the city wall, flying back and forth. The guards had grown wings on their bodies. They flapped their pure white wings and flew up and down the perimeter of the wall, as if checking on its health. At the top of the wall, every 1,000 feet, a towering tower had been set up. Above the solid wall, it looked like towering needles piercing the sky. It was Li Yuanqing's first time here, so he was even more curious about everything that was happening. The only thing he had come into contact with in the immortal world were the human sects or the scattered rogue cultivators. This was the first time he had come into contact with a human city in the immortal world. Compared to the cities in the lower realm, the human cities here were so majestic. The cost of building this city wall alone would probably never be comparable to the entire Pingcheng below. There was no need to talk about its defense. If it had such a defense, Li Yuanqing probably wouldn't have had to constantly strengthen it because of the demons. Li Yuanqing looked at the dim city and felt depressed. On the other side, Wang Lan had already landed the small boat at the entrance of Tianyun City. When Wang Lan was outside, he was very arrogant. However, he became obedient after arriving here. He followed the others and lined up obediently with Li Yuanqing in the middle of a group of strange-looking foreigners. In front of Li Yuanqing was a swordsman in a white robe. The man carried a sword on his hip. His left hand rested lightly on it, his right hand behind his back. His hands were delicate and fierce. Behind them was a big guy, 30 feet tall. He was very bulky, and his big face looked very honest. There was a very thick mist coming out of his big nostrils, which kept floating above Li Yuanqing's head. He looked very uncomfortable. Li Yuanqing glanced at the huge fellow. He was actually a black bear with black fur. His big eyes happened to be lowered and staring at Li Yuanqing. His eyes were the size of Li Yuanqing's entire body. At this moment, the line in front gradually approached the city gate, but something seemed to have happened. Li Yuanqing was feeling uncomfortable when there was a commotion in front of him. He saw 3 burly demons standing beside the white-robed swordsman in front of them. These 3 demons were strong, tall, and looked very fierce. The 3 burly men surrounded the man in the middle, making him invisible from the outside. Haha, Chou-Wu, let's see where you can run to today. The 3 huge demons each held a weapon in their hands. One held a huge heavy sword. One carried a huge hammer, and the other wore heavy boxing gloves on both hands. They were waiting eagerly, as if they were about to attack at any moment. The swordsman was surrounded in the middle, but he still stood there calmly. He only replied coldly, "Don't cause trouble." His cold attitude angered the scaled demon with the heavy sword. Two clouds of mist spewed out of his thick nostrils and spread towards Cho Wu. "Cho Wu, you're about to die, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. You escaped last time in the city. Now, we are outside the city. The city rules won't take effect here. Let's see what reason you have to escape this time." The three brothers sized up the swordsman in front of them smugly and even arranged the tasks that would be assigned later. "Brother Long, you don't have to do anything later. With this hammer of mine, this guy will turn into a pile of meat paste. At that time, I'll crush this kid's corpse into meatballs for you. I'll put them into the oil pot one by one and fry them for you to eat." The demon holding the heavy hammer hummed as he spoke. He was short and fat, like a big ball. He was very compatible with his round hammer. The demon called Brother Long placed his hand on his brother's shoulder and patted him gently. "Old Zhu, watch from the side later. I must personally deal with this kid and avenge our brothers. Otherwise, our Tianlong gang will really be looked down upon by them. He really thinks we're easy to bully." The people queuing at the city gate were still entering, and there were already 2 empty spots. Seeing this, the swordsman wanted to walk out of their encirclement and continue queuing. However, the 3 brothers had finally caught him. How could they let him go so easily? They continued to chase after him and surrounded the swordsman again. He even stared at him unhappily and said, "Good fellow, we brothers are talking to you. Did you not hear us, or what? If you can kneel down obediently and kowtow to me 10 times, I can still leave your corpse intact." Although the immortal world prohibited large-scale fights, there was an unwritten rule. If they hated each other and killed each other, they would investigate the reason. If the reason was within the acceptable range, this kind of killing could be shown leniency. However, most of the time, both parties would argue with each other. In particular, it was impossible to explain the entanglement between the 2 parties. Others could not be bothered with it either. It would not be too late to make a decision after they killed the other party. Seeing that the 3 brothers were charging at him again, the swordsman's expression finally changed. He picked up the sword at his waist and hugged it in his arms. He straightened his chest and said to them warningly, "If you know what's good for you, get lost. I'm not in the mood to fight today." "You're not in the mood to fight? Then be a good boy and die." Brother Long gritted his teeth and swung his heavy sword at the swordsman's head. His sword was very heavy and made of special materials. It was extremely strong. This sword was only raised high, but it gave off a very strong sense of oppression before it even slashed down. Even those at the side were more or less affected. The people around them could not help but retreat a little. Wang Lan frowned and shook his shoulders unhappily. A majestic force was released from his body, forming a shield in front of the 2 of them to protect them from being affected. "Go to hell." The flood dragon shouted, and his aura suddenly increased. His originally 10-foot-tall body expanded again at this moment, doubling to more than 20 feet. His figure was almost comparable to the big black bear behind Li Yuanqing. This flood dragon's waist became longer and longer. His 2 arms inexplicably grew out, and a large number of scales appeared. His human-shaped palms also turned into dragon claws. In the blink of an eye, the heavy sword had already arrived less than a foot above the swordsman's head. Although this heavy sword looked cumbersome, it was extremely fast. In an instant, it was about to split this swordsman into 2. Li Yuanqing did not know what grudges were going on between them. He wanted to stop them, but Wang Lan did not do anything about it, so it was probably not appropriate for him to make a move. "Master!" Li Yuanqing called out softly. Wang Lan raised a withered palm and blocked Li Yuanqing. At this moment, a sword light flashed in the crowd. When Li Yuanqing looked over again, suddenly, hot blood spewed in all directions uncontrollably. The flood dragon looked at his broken right arm in disbelief. His right arm hand had been neatly cut off at the forearm. The cut was as smooth as a mirror. The vigorous blood in his body was surging at this moment. Such a huge gap appeared, and it immediately spewed out uncontrollably. For a moment, it was scattered everywhere. The onlookers below used their own methods to isolate the blood. When the flood dragon's blood landed on the ground, black smoke rose from the dark ground, emitting a sizzling sound. It was very terrifying. The swordsman remained impassive, but at that moment he was about to put his sword back into its scabbard. "I warned you." With that, the swordsman walked slowly between the two brothers, who were already dumbfounded. The two brothers were already scared silly and did not know how to cause trouble at all. They only remembered after the swordsman walked past them. They looked at the flood dragon to ask, but they did not dare to speak. "What are you waiting for? Kill him." The flood dragon's eyes were red, and his hatred seemed to be spreading. He gritted his teeth and glared at his brothers, but they were too terrified to give chase. "Brother Long, your hand is here. You should put it back first." "That's right, Brother Long. You're so seriously injured. Don't tell me there's some poison on his sword. Let's heal first." When the flood dragon saw that the two brothers, who had been aggressive just a moment ago, had become such cowards, he gritted his teeth in anger. However, there was nothing he could do. After bringing the two of them over, he did not expect them to do anything serious. "Useless thing." The flood dragon gritted his teeth. His arms drooped under his body, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Looking at the place where the arm was originally severed, something suddenly began to slowly squirm out. The thing did not move quickly at first. After a while, an embryonic form could be seen. It was actually a very young palm. As soon as this hand took on a new appearance, it grew very quickly and soon returned to its original appearance. A hard purple scale covered the arm, which was restored to its original state. "Brother Long, your severed arm is here. You can just reattach it. Why waste so much blood essence?" The burly man with the heavy gloves looked at the flood dragon in disbelief. They were relatively strong. Although they had the ability to regrow broken arms, it took a lot of vitality to grow an arm out of thin air. It would probably take them a few years to recover. Why did this flood dragon seem to have gone crazy? His severed hand was here, and the two brothers were helping him hold it. In the end, the flood dragon had no intention of putting his hand back. The flood dragon was so angry that his scaly face visibly changed color. "I must kill that bastard today." After saying that, the flood dragon waved his hand, and the black heavy sword returned to his hand. At this moment, the swordsman had already reached the city gate. There were only two people left in front of him. He would be able to enter the city soon. Li Yuanqing looked at the back of the swordsman and could not help but praise. The speed of that fellow's attack just now was probably stronger than his. Li Yuanqing admitted that although he was not in the pinnacle, he was still quite experienced. However, seeing this swordsman's methods, Li Yuanqing realized that his swordsmanship had been abandoned for too long. He still had many areas where he could improve. Master knew that those three were no match for him, so he didn't want to attack. Li Yuanqing followed behind Wang Lan and walked forward together, ignoring the demons beside him. Wang Lan said with a cold expression, "Those three guys only have appearances, so they don't pose much of a threat. Why are you so impatient? You still have many opportunities to walk around in the future. If you want to personally interfere in these matters, then don't go out." When the two of them spoke, they did not care about the people beside them at all. At this moment, they happened to walk to the side of the demons, leaving the two demons staring at Wang Lan's back with wide eyes. At this moment, the flood dragon had already walked behind Cho Wu. Without any explanation, he carried the heavy sword and waved it fiercely, intending to cut Cho Wu in half. At that moment, Cho Wu finally moved. It was the first time the crowd had seen him move his hands. There was a clang as the two swords overlapped. Although Cho Wu's sword looked much thinner, it steadily blocked the flood dragon's aggressive attack. The two swords looked very different in size, and the stalemate between them looked very strange. When the onlookers saw this, they could not help but gasp. This fellow was actually able to forcefully receive the flood dragon's full-powered attack. Moreover, his body did not move at all, as if nothing had happened. How powerful was he? Even the flood dragon subconsciously discovered the problem. He looked at Cho Wu's back in disbelief. "You?" Suddenly, he felt a majestic force coming from the hand holding the sword. This huge force was like a landslide. It was usually so difficult to resist that it directly sent him flying. He tried his best to stabilize himself in midair. But at this moment, countless threads of sword energy appeared in the sky ahead. Those sword energies were very difficult to identify. If one was weaker, they would not even be able to see them. Seeing this, the flood dragon was shocked. He hurriedly raised his heavy sword to block. After a flash of light, the flood dragon was smashed to the ground. He happened to land beside Wang Lan, who stopped in his tracks. The flood dragon happened to be lying in front of his feet, creating a huge pit. The heavy sword he was so proud of was now modeled. This heavy sword made of special materials was covered in cracks. The light on this sword was very dim. Although there was still a trace of light that could be mobilized, it ultimately could not maintain this last dim light and dissipated without warning. The mighty heavy sword was finally reduced to pieces by such a sharp attack. The flood dragon's face was pale, and he could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. He lowered his head and looked at the broken heavy sword in his hand in disbelief. He could not accept that his extremely proud Dharma treasure was so vulnerable in the hands of others. What was even more unacceptable was that his opponent had somehow increased his cultivation again. Cho Wu was originally only a 5th stage supremacy. Among the 3 of them, 2 were 5th stage supremacies and 1 4th stage supremacy. They could easily deal with Cho Wu. However, he did not expect Cho Wu to inexplicably break through his cultivation level. Moreover, his comprehension seemed to have improved further. Now, his sword technique was even sharper. Looking at this opponent in front of him, an irresistible fear rose in the flood dragon's heart. He had been so arrogant just now, but after being dealt a blow, he suddenly became dispirited. Cho Wu slowly walked over while dragging his sword step by step. He walked to the other end of the deep pit and faced Wang Lan and Li Yuanqing from afar. "Are you going to kill him?" Wang Lan suddenly said. Cho Wu glanced up, frowning slightly. "Does this man have anything to do with you, senior?" he asked. Wang Lan shook his head and said indifferently, "It has nothing to do with me. Since he doesn't have anything to do with you, there's no need for you to protect him, right? I have a personal grudge with him. I believe everyone has seen it just now. It was the 3 brothers who were aggressive. I had no choice but to attack." After saying that, he raised the sword in his hand and was about to attack. At this moment, Wang Lan suddenly said, "He can't kill you." Cho Wu's expression turned ugly as he looked at Wang Lan in confusion. "I have no grudge against you, right? It's his problem for overestimating himself, but since he's my enemy, I have to reduce the number of my enemies, even if he doesn't have the strength now. Perhaps by doing so you save yourself some trouble." Li Yuanqing did not know much about the way things were done here, and he did not know why Wang Lan, who was watching from the sidelines when they were about to attack, suddenly interfered when he was about to reap the fruits of success. It was really strange. Just as Li Yuanqing was feeling puzzled, the city guard had already strode over. He stood beside Cho Wu and said to him, "Are you guys going in or not? I'll go after I finish him off. This is Tianyun City. I advise you all to behave yourselves. Don't cause trouble for yourselves." After saying that, the guard ignored them and strode back to the city gate. Cho Wu looked at Wang Lan again, slowly put away the sword in his hand and placed it properly on his waist. Then, he ignored the flood dragon lying on the ground. After he left, Wang Lan also jumped over the flood dragon with Li Yuanqing and followed Cho Wu into Tianyun City. Before Li Yuanqing entered the city, he even turned around to take a look. Those demons heaved a sigh of relief as they gathered together and carefully looked over at them, as if they were happy to have survived. "Master, which sect is that person from? It looks like his sword technique is extraordinary." Tianyun City was even wider than it looked from the outside. After entering the city, there were more than 10 roads of various sizes. The 2 sides quickly parted ways. Wang Lan suddenly stopped and looked at Li Yuanqing strangely. "Master, why are you looking at me?" Wang Lan asked in confusion. The technique that Guy used just now was very simple. If you don't have some understanding of swordsmanship, you might not be able to see what he did. Even if you can see some of it, you probably won't think that such a simple technique has any effect. Li Yuanqing's face stiffened and he asked, "What do you mean, Master? I see you still have many secrets." "Master, You must be joking. What secrets can I hide? I'm just a disciple. Wang Lan raised his eyebrows and did not continue asking. So what do you think of his methods just now? What are the odds of success if you go up against him? Wang Lan asked Li Yuanqing, and he pretended to be surprised. Master, you're too good at making fun of me. With my little ability, I'm afraid I won't even be able to withstand a single move from him. I was just asking casually. You wouldn't send me to my death, right? At this moment, Wang Lan was also used to Li Yuanqing's teasing. He only smiled and replied, It's best that you know in your heart. If you're outside, it's safest to ask less about other people's matters. I understand. However, Master, could it be that you don't know which sect that person is from, so you deliberately patronize me? As Li Yuanqing spoke, Wang Lan had already led him around many bustling streets and finally stopped in front of a shop that looked orderly. There was a simple signboard hanging above this shop. The signboard was the South City branch. These simple words looked rather dignified. It was as if as long as it said the location of South City, it did not need to say which sect he was from. Wang Lan looked up at the signboard and said casually, That's the technique of the Lingyun Pavilion. There's no one easy to deal with in their sword sect. It's better to interact less with them. After Wang Lan answered Li Yuanqing's doubts, he walked into the attic. Li Yuanqing followed Wang Lan into the house. The house did not look big from the outside, but it was rather bright inside. The living room had been built to be spacious. Most importantly, there was a lot of space at the back, and there wasn't much in the way of space. The shelves were also clean and placed in some exquisite wooden boxes or prefab bottles. A rich medicinal fragrance filled the room, instantly making one feel refreshed. Li Yuanqing looked around curiously and guessed that this was the branch of the Alchemy Pavilion. He did not expect Wang Lan to bring him to the branch office the first thing he did after entering the city. Was the assessment going to start now? Wasn't this a little too hasty? Li Yuanqing pondered silently in his heart and did not show his worry. He only pretended to be nonchalant and stood behind Wang Lan. After the two of them entered, a middle-aged man in a green Taoist robe walked out. The middle-aged man had a long beard and thin cheeks. His eyes were bright and full of spirit. When he saw Wang Lan, he smiled and greeted him from afar. So the old deacon is here. It's been a long time since you came to my place. Why are you here today? I'm really surprised. Wang Lan did not stand on ceremony. He walked to a couch at the side and sat down cross-legged. He pointed at Li Yuanqing and said, I've just taken in a new disciple today. This disciple is interested in medicinal pills. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you. Disciple? Upon hearing the word disciple, the man's eyes widened. He looked Li Yuanqing up and down as if he had never expected such a thing to happen. What kind of ability does a child like him have? To be able to make the old deacon want to take in a disciple? He could not help but go forward and grab Li Yuanqing's arm to check, as if he wanted to find something unique from Li Yuanqing. His aptitude is not bad. He has such a high cultivation at such a young age. His future is definitely promising. He nodded as he checked, muttering under his breath. I wonder how good his alchemy skills are. Usually, if his cultivation is high, his alchemy skills will definitely fall behind. He turned around and asked Wang Lan, Old Deacon, you know the rules here. Although I can help a little, without a lot of alchemy experience to accumulate, even I can't do anything during this period of time. Wang Lan was not in a hurry at all. Instead, he looked confident and gestured to Li Yuanqing. Li Yuanqing recalled what Wang Lan had told him before they came. He took out a medicine bottle and handed it to the man in front of him. The man hurriedly took the medicine bottle and opened it. He only held it to the tip of his nose and sniffed it slightly. His eyes immediately lit up. Did you refine this yourself? The man looked at Li Yuanqing solemnly for confirmation. Li Yuanqing answered hesitantly, Of course, I refined it under master's guidance. At the side, Wang Lan said bluntly, Don't give me that. I haven't taught you anything yet. How is it? Zhao Wuming, how capable is my disciple? Is he worth your help? The man who was called Zhao Wuming sat beside Wang Lan suspiciously and asked him in a low voice, Senior, are you making fun of me again? Why have I never heard of such a person before? Haven't you heard of him now?